So recently we've been blessed with season 8 of Rick and Morty. Season 8, it kind of leans into themes of fatherhood, legacy, emotional healing. Kind of bullcrap in my opinion, but Rick and Morty, they're allowed to do whatever they want. As long as it's funny and the story isn't too shit. I don't really care that much. But where I kind of fall into the hater section of the people who watch this show is the way Rick and Morty is currently being written is just... You can tell the jokes are so forced. It's not even... One of the main reasons I enjoyed the show was because the previous guy who was in charge, Justin Roiland, also the creator of the show as well, he was responsible for improvising on the spot just the most hilarious lines with him stuttering every few sentences. The way he just played Rick and Morty, it was the best. Those were the good old days. But then he had to turn into a diddler. So let's just quickly run through the episodes if you haven't really watched it. Episode 1, we got Summer and Morty being punished by Rick for stealing his phone charger. Classic Rick and Morty stuff. I mean, they've always taken just like a little normal scenario within a family and exploded to another level. And so Summer and Morty are trapped in some sort of Matrix style simulation, and Summer's pretty confident and capable, whereas Morty is sort of like an ex-soldier going through PTSD. And I don't know, this episode was interesting. It gave me a lot of hope. I was like, yeah, come on, this is the Rick and Morty I know and love. And I'm pretty sure Morty ends up becoming like a terrorist or something. But in classic Rick and Morty fashion, everything works out in the end. Everyone makes up and it's a great time. But episode 2 that's where things go to shit, man. Alright, firstly, we're gonna go ahead and introduce the episode with flipping Space Beth of all people. Who wants to see Space Beth? Unless she's, I don't know, like a side character in like a really important episode that has to do with the full-on main storyline with like evil Morty and Prime Rick, even though he's already dead. I just don't want to see her on the screen. Like, I don't have anything personal against her, it's just why? Anyways, she's trying to assassinate the Gromflamite queen, but the queen's already dead, and so Rick rescues her only to see that the queen is still alive on the news. I really don't know what happened in this episode. Like, me explaining the first 2 minutes to you has already got me more confused than you. I'm gonna be so real with you guys right now. I didn't watch this episode. I watched like the first 5 minutes of the episode and I just gave up. I was contemplating whether or not to do the rest of the season after this, or should I just stop watching Rick and Morty. But after my friend sort of convinced me, don't worry, it gets better, it goes back to being funny, I was like, okay, I'll take your word for it. I'll try one more episode, see what happens. And so we get to episode 3, the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly. And in some sort of Wild West planet that's inhabited by Rick and Morty clones, there's a farm dwelling Rick and some other Morty dude. You know how there's like different types of Ricks and Mortys, but basically what happens is that Morty teams up with other Mortys to rescue kidnapped Morty clones. I feel like they're kind of recycling storylines here a little bit, guys, but let them cook, okay? So there's this boss called Hog Rick, and he turns out to be the mastermind behind the whole cloning infrastructure, and the farming Rick reveals he's the original Rick who built the clone, and he sacrifices himself to defeat the Hog, or the boss, whatever you want to call it, allowing the Mortys to disperse to the planets which they were once part of, or if they're clones, then whichever planets they want to. And Arcade Morty honors the sacrifice. I feel like this episode really reminded me of what Rick and Morty was about. I kind of dig the whole Danny DeVito cameo, but why'd they have to make him a messed up alien who gets caught watching bestiality? I get this is meant to be a sort of messed up TV show, but come on, man, come on. Why did he agree to this role? I don't even know, but it was an enjoyable episode nevertheless. That one episode about Rick and Morty trying to make a better maximum velocity and trying to pitch it to James Gunn, that was amazing as well. And then James Gunn saying they outdone the gun, that was absolute cinema, guys. There was a lot of development in terms of Rick's character arc. Who would have thought that he would have grown while being trapped inside a movie? And Jerry was also tested in a way, because James was like, yeah, give in to Hollywood. And Jerry was like, no, screw you, and punched him in the face, and, didn't turn his back on his family. So, like, respect Jerry. Everyone hates on Jerry, but come on, let's give him a little something here, alright? This guy, when the time came, he stood up for himself, and he stood up for his family, and I think that's something you can appreciate. And episode 4, we get another one of those batshit crazy episodes with Jerry trying to get into an Easter celebration. But Jerry, once he tries to do something, it just all goes to shit. He becomes some sort of Easter bunny monster, and he just wants everybody to let's go to the later episodes. We got a couple more episodes where it's like kind of reminiscing on the older Rick and Morty episodes, but exactly like them. The writing is sort of similar. Clearly there's definitely some people who they just kept, or they just still have them on board. Like, I know they still have the same producer, but the mind behind it was Justin Roiland. I'm not trying to meat ride this guy because he did talk to minors, but in terms of coming up with a storyline, I feel like they just kind of threw everything from the previous season out the window. No mention of how Rick killed Prime Rick. No mention of where Evil Morty is, or I don't know what he's getting up to, maybe. Literally nothing to do with the central storyline. It's just Jerry's episodes, Beth episodes, and then Morty is just sort of doing his own stuff in the background. We get this kind of split story, where you usually see it in like Marvel movies these days, where we have one story going along, and then as soon as it gets to its climax, it flips to the other story, and then we get that for another 20 minutes, and then it flips to the other one. It's sort of like that. So, I don't know. I don't really like that, Most of the Rick and Morty episodes before, they were kind of linear, but not really. It followed more of like so this happened, but then this happened, which made this happen, then this happened, then this happened. It was just more of a free flow kind of episode, whereas these just feel less authentic because they try and follow split story kind of dynamic, which I feel like is being overused a lot in cinema and TVs in general. So then we get to the final 2 episodes, which I think were actually probably 2 of the best, if not the best. I think the last episode was the best episode in the entire season, because it feels like the last episode was just what they were trying to do the entire season. They were trying to get a story where Beth would ultimately, sort of unite with Rick again, but it had to be in a way that was deep and emotional. But I also feel like they couldn't have achieved it in one episode, because he needs to undergo some sort of character arc, which would probably take an entire season knowing how Rick is. And the emotional finale focuses on a memory version of Rick who's super cool and way younger, and what Rick tries to do in order to kind of free himself from a mental prison is erase all memory of his wife Diane from his own brain. But Memory Rick infiltrates Beth's mind to resurrect the memory of Diane, and so this makes Beth go crazy, almost attempting suicide, and this leads to Rick apologizing to Beth for not being in her life that much ever since Diane was unfortunately killed. And so ultimately, Rick isolates Memory Rick and Diane in outer space. So them two are like the happy ending that everyone, or well, not everyone, but I'm pretty sure what I wanted deep in my heart, for Rick and Diane to at least be together in some alternate universe or alternate way. So in that sense, I feel like it was a pretty good finale to have. Kind of links all the way back to season 1 as well, which I thought was really nice. All in all, it wasn't a bad attempt at a season. It was decent, okay? It was alright. For a season that didn't really have much substance, it feels like I'm watching an anime that's filler, but it's good filler, It's the type of filler that makes me laugh. And, in the end, we somehow managed to get some plot with Rick finally accepting Diane's death, I guess. But next season, I want to see some Evil Morty. I want to see real character development from Morty as well. Just, screw Space Beth, whatever. Like, when she almost died episode 10, I was like secretly celebrating, but not really, because it was kind of tragic that Beth killed herself, you know, because Space Beth is just a clone of normal Beth. But no more Beth storylines. We don't need that. Jerry can screw himself, bro. I don't want to see any more of that. Just go back to what the show's actually about, man. Rick and Morty. Anyways, you heard it here first, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you guys have any, you know, interjections, you want to say anything, you think I'm being a bit too harsh, or you just straight up disagree with me, feel free to leave it down in the comments. I'll probably reply to you. If you make too good of a point though, I'll probably just agree with you and just keep it at that. Thanks for watching this video, and you know, just share this YouTube channel with some of your friends. Who knows, they might like it. But other than that, subscribe. It really helps me out.